DJ Lagway leaving Florida. Where does he go? What does Florida do next?
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Tulane, Ole Miss at a glance in a rematch, and some other quarterbacks have entered the portal that you need to know about. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase, especially if it's a college football playoff ticket. They can be pricey. Brandon Olson, Locked On Gators, is here to discuss DJ Lagway going into the portal. John Sumrall and company, I guess, couldn't keep him around. Brandon, this came as a surprise to me. When the news dropped, did it surprise you?
Yeah, didn't expect him entering the portal. I actually spoke to someone about it on Sunday, and from what I was told, they thought he was going to still be in Gainesville. So there's that, despite his agent then going to On3 and saying that basically, you know, Florida's communication or lack thereof is why they entered the transfer portal, which does that not sound like something an agent's supposed to say, right? Like you're as an agent, it's your job to kind of deflect that. We'll never know what actually happens as is with most college football cases. I will say, I think it's a great decision for DJ. I started saying it in October. I think the best thing for him is to portal out, get right, get healthy. I think he's fixable, but at a certain point, I don't know if you're fixable at a spot where you have quite a bit of we'll say negative impact this year. And so I think it's great for him to portal out and just be better for him. I'd take him back. I want to make that clear. I still would have had him back. I just think for him personally, it was a great decision. Yeah,
16 touchdowns, 14 interceptions this year. Almost a third of his interceptions came in one game. Now, if you said that as a blanket statement before the year, hey, a third of DJ Lagway's picks are going to come in one game, you're probably thinking, so he's going to have a 2-interception game once this year, and he's going to throw 4 picks the rest of the year? Oh, this is going great. Florida to the play. Yeah, not so much. So where do you think he winds up? Because I think the easiest answer, because I've talked about this school several times before already in the offseason when you're talking about high-profile transfer quarterbacks, is Miami. It's in the state. They've got plenty of money. They're attractive for a player. I think they're going to be in the market again for a transfer quarterback because they've gone 2 for 2. Like, no, their Cam Ward season didn't work out how they wanted it to, but they're in the playoffs now. That's largely because Carson Beck came across, or came from Georgia across the country to Florida, or however many states. That's not that many states over, actually. I need to
literally next to each other.
Yeah, okay. You get the point that I'm making there. Like, it worked out very well. You still got Shannon Dawson there. Doesn't appear like he's leaving. So I think it'd be attractive for DJ Lagway. I think it'd be attractive for Miami. But what other schools came to your mind when you heard DJ Lagway's going in the portal?
Baylor's in there because his dad went there in the state of Texas. I think Texas A&M would be an interesting one because we know the DJ Lagway, like for years now, we've heard, you know, at some point DJ is going to need surgery on the shoulder. Go get it now. Let Marcel Reed have his last year at A&M next year. And then once you're back, you're back. Just take that redshirt year, get healthy, get right, and succeed because he's still incredibly physically talented. And I think USC is up there just because of Lincoln Riley. Like, that was one of the spots towards the end. I think that's another spot where it's like, all right, you can go get whatever you need done. We'll see what happens. We'll revisit. Miami's going to be up there. You know, he was a big part in Miami winning a football game this year in week 4. He was a really big part in that. So he gets to contribute there. Yeah, they had that one drive that was magical. I'll tell you that. But, you know,
vibes were high in Gainesville at that point, man. Let them down the field. Whoa, we're back.
Yeah, halftime to cut the lead. It was a crisp ball. It's a huge 3 to cut the lead to 42. That's all that was.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that a lot of schools are going to be vying for him. LSU is going to be in there as well. I don't think it's surprising that Lane Kiffin, before the Ole Miss Florida game, Lane spent a few minutes basically talking about how DJ Lagway would be such a better quarterback if he had better coaching. And so essentially that's what he was essentially saying, which
He's
is
not wrong. By the way, not wrong. Not wrong.
He's a lot of things. In this case, he's not a liar. I'll tell you that one. And so, yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of schools vying for Lagway, and they should. Like, I know this year sucked, but he wasn't healthy. It was very clear he wasn't healthy. As far as, the mental mistakes that he made, which were a lot of them, he's developmentally still a freshman. He is. He started half the year as a true freshman, then had no offseason whatsoever. Developmentally, he's still a freshman. There's still room to grow there. I know that a lot of people see an awful stretch that you saw this season and go, oh, he's broken. He can't be fixed. I don't think that's true. I think he's still a very talented quarterback. Wish the best for him, but I think that for all the Florida fans that go, well, is there a chance he comes back? No. If you're QB1 and you announce your intention to enter the portal, you're not coming back. Everyone already hates you. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and here's the next question for Florida. Is he the last one? Is he the only one? Because when you didn't expect him to go, and he does, and as you mentioned, he's QB1 from this past year and would have been in 2026, does he lead some guys with him, or does it at least make other guys look around and go, maybe I'm not going to stick around for the John Summerall era and I want to explore greener pastures than what I had in Gainesville? The name that, of course, comes to mind is Dallas Wilson, 5-star true freshman receiver that, when he actually was able to have the ball thrown in his direction, he's great. He's great. Yeah. Maybe he'd want a place. Maybe he feels like John Summerall is going to be able to provide that with a new offensive staff. Or maybe he feels, I want to go with DJ Lagway. Or maybe he wants to go somewhere else. Is there any package deal component to these two guys that you know of?
I don't think there's a package deal component. I do think that there is if Dallas Wilson enters the transfer portal, which to this point, I am fairly certain he's a priority to retain. If he were to enter the transfer portal, I do think if Lagway goes to Miami and Dallas could wind up there as well, maybe, not likely, but maybe. I would also like to float the argument or float the idea of, if I'm a wide receiver, and I say this half joking, but if I'm a wide receiver, does DJ Lagway leaving make me more likely to leave or less likely? Because
depends on who's coming in.
You don't have an established quarterback anymore, but I watched DJ Lagway play quarterback this year. And if I'm a receiver, I went like this a lot. Or if I'm a receiver, I went like, oh, now I got to go chase someone and I got to play defense now. So I don't know. Frankly, I know that DJ Lagway is very well respected in the locker room. I know a lot of people like him, but expectations are expectations. Didn't live up to them. And now there's this little, he ghosted me that they got going on. It's super fun. I feel like I'm right back in middle school. It's a good time.
What exactly, for those that don't know, what can you tell us about that?
I know that I spoke to someone on Sunday night about DJ Lagway maybe not being super receptive to Florida. And I know that DJ Lagway's agent said that Florida's communication or lack thereof led to it. And so I don't know. I think this is one of those things where you're never getting the truth there. We're just all going to speculate. People are going to pick a side that they want to be on.
That feels messy.
I'm usually on the side of, I just don't believe anything anyone says there. That's the safest way to go through life, I think, with college football, where everyone's lying constantly. And that is what it is. But I think that it's again, I wish that he was still a Gator. I like DJ Lagway. I still think he's fixable. I think that the best decision for his career, though, was to get a fresh start where the fan base doesn't remember you throwing 5 picks against LSU and doesn't remember you throwing 3 picks and a half against Kentucky and then getting benched. And where the fan base hasn't soured. Because DJ Lagway had expectations that I don't think any quarterbacks had in Gainesville since Tim Tebow. Including Anthony Richardson, Kyle Trask. I don't think anybody had the expectations that DJ Lagway had, because DJ was a 5-star, the highest ranked quarterback when he came in.
Are you telling me they had higher hopes for DJ Lagway than Felipe Franks?
Who'd have thought?
I can't believe that you're saying those words.
Longtime NFL tight end Felipe Franks.
Brandon, we're on the air right now. Don't you know that you're saying these things out loud? I mean, my goodness, man. My goodness, but I will not be editing that out. Brandon Olson, Locked On Gators, great as always. Ole Miss, Tulane. What would a shocker even look like in Oxford this week?
John Summerall winning.
First, this episode brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family, planning the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience straight to your door. And what makes it even better? With Omaha Steaks, you always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that make anyone feel appreciated. You will love how easy it is to gift. It shows up frozen, it's packed beautifully, it's ready to cook. It's so easy. And if you have a foodie in your life, look, I'm one of those people. This is the sort of gift that you want to get them for the holidays. It's got everything that you could want to have a great holiday meal. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and for an extra $35 off, use code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Check them out at omahasteaks.com. How could it happen? Can it happen? Is it even possible to conceive the idea, reasonable I should say, that Tulane could beat Ole Miss in Oxford with first-time head coach Pete Golding? What a way to start your coaching career. Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss is here to discuss just that. Steven, just indulge me. I'm going to Disneyland for Christmas, so I will pass through Fantasyland at one point in time or another. So put yourself there. If Tulane goes in and wins this game, what will have transpired?
Well, first of all, if that transpires, I sentence you to have to ride It's a Small World at least twice while you're at Disneyland.
I will be riding it at least once.
Yeah. But if Tulane is able to stay in this game, that meant that Ole Miss turned the ball over at very inopportune times. Maybe there's a special teams touchdown that happened along the way. Stuff like that allows underdogs to stay in. And whenever you are 17.5-point favorites, you need real help. So it's going to be up to Ole Miss to not give it to them. Don't hold, don't have inopportune penalties, and don't turn the football over, and Ole Miss will be fine on Saturday.
Game 1, 45-10 was the final score, if memory serves. It was played on this very field, by the way. I mean, we've got real deja vu here. At least Oklahoma, Alabama is being played in a different stadium than it was before. But is your confidence level pretty high that Ole Miss with Pete Golding at the helm now and Lane Kiffin at LSU officially is still just going to be able to roll?
Well, the problem that Tulane had in the first matchup is not going to go away in this second matchup. And that was the fact that they just couldn't match up against the Ole Miss offensive line or against Ole Miss's defensive line. And you really can't Band-Aid over that. So I don't know. I wish it wasn't a rematch, but if you're an Ole Miss fan and somebody said, hey, you're going to get a college football playoff game at home and you're going to be 18-point favorites, there's nobody that would say no to that. I mean, you're heading up to cover a college football playoff game this weekend as well, and it's a very similar situation without the rematch. You definitely would rather be in that situation than Oklahoma and Alabama being a 1.5 spread, or Texas A&M and Miami being about 3 points as well. That would cause some anxiety. This one caused a little bit of a coronation, a little bit of a celebration.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's path definitely on the favorable side of things. I think Duck fans, after getting Ohio State in the first round last year, happy to have James, or in the quarterfinals rather, I think they're happy to have James Madison at least at some level, because the path ahead will include Texas Tech if they win that game, probably Indiana, who you'd play for a second time, and maybe Georgia or Ohio State coming from the other side of the bracket.
Now. Come on now.
Or Ole Miss.
Yeah,
It's all on the table there. But bringing it back to this particular game, when I've talked about Tulane on the show, something I always find a way to mention is Jake Retzloff's legs. And I think they're going to have to be used in this game because we know Ole Miss has the advantage up front. So how do you at least get some of that back if you're the Green Wave? you got to create a numbers advantage or give yourself a more favorable matchup. That often involves quarterback run. It's been a part of them, a part of their offensive identity this year, I think, when they're at their best. But it doesn't always come on design quarterback runs. One of those kind of sicko film breakdown guru, whatever you want to call it, things that I'm watching for in this game is rush lane discipline. Because if you get out of contain with Jake Retzloff, he will take off and run. And that can create an explosive play, keep drives alive, do all sorts of good things for the Green Wave.
Yeah, and one thing that's really interesting or weird or however you want to put it, Ole Miss has faced Taylon Green, John Mateer, just mobile quarterback after mobile quarterback. Gunnar Stockton against the Georgia Bulldogs, Kamario Taylor from Mississippi State, which is going to be a fantastic player once he develops. Ole Miss going against Jake Retzloff, probably the second or third most mobile quarterback that they've seen this season. So they should be used to run lane discipline, and they should be used to not overextending themselves, that they can handle what's going on. He doesn't throw the ball incredibly well. That's how he struggled in the first matchup against Ole Miss. And if he has a similar struggle against Ole Miss this time, I think the result could be about the same.
I think Tulane, to pull an upset here, has to win the turnover battle. Probably has to be by at least 2. And Retzloff it could be. I think that's why I said at least 2. Like, if it's one turnover that Tulane's defense forces, and they've been good at that this season, and Ole Miss doesn't force any, I don't think that's enough. Yeah. I think you have to have a number of flip the field, change the momentum, get easy points. I think that has to happen a couple times, and certainly Tulane's capable of doing that. I don't know how capable they are against Ole Miss in this particular spot, but they also have to protect the ball. Their worst loss of the year came on the road against an average UTSA team in the American. What happened? Retzloff got benched because he kept turning the football over, and they had to bring in Brendan Sorsby at quarterback. So if that doesn't go their way, I really can't see him winning the football game. But I want to go to the Ole Miss side of this, Steven, on offense. Lane Kiffin's been the play caller. He's not there. What do you think that changes, if anything, for the Ole Miss offense?
Well, Charlie Weiss calls about 90% of the plays for Ole Miss, even when Lane Kiffin was there.
Okay.
Lane Kiffin just basically had veto, and all those Lane Kiffin shot plays where he threw a clipboard, that's stuff that he called. But Charlie Weiss, Ole Miss's offense runs so quickly that you don't have time to have all of the back and the forth and what's going on. So I think it's going to look fairly similar. Maybe you're not going to go for a 4th and 7 on your own 25 up 10 points. Maybe that's going away. I don't know. But I think this offense is going to look a little bit more conservative than it was under Lane Kiffin, which honestly, they're talented enough to be a little bit more conservative. You're still going to have Kewan Lacey. You're still going to have Trinidad Chambliss. You're still going to have those bevy of wide receivers out on the outside. They're going to be dangerous. I just think they're going to be a little bit more conservative. And the important thing with this Ole Miss football team that nobody is talking about, after the Georgia game, Ole Miss basically benched the drop 8, rush 3 passers through 3 defensive linemen because of what Georgia did to Ole Miss. After that, the Oklahoma game, they started really turning up the heat on John Mateer and the quarterbacks they faced after that. And the defense has been much better to the point where now all of a sudden randomly they're a top 25 defense in all of college football. That is interesting against Tulane because you could see Ole Miss speed him up. There also could be a chance for him to get loose with his legs. That might just look a little bit different, but the defense has been much, much improved since they made that change.
Is there anything else about this game that stands out in your mind as, man, Ole Miss has just got to do this, or they just have to avoid that, and they'll wind up rolling again? Do you think this score kind of repeats itself from the first matchup?
No, I think it's going to be a tighter game. And the reason it's going to be a tighter game, in the first matchup, if everybody remembers, and they might not, Tulane went for several 4th downs in Ole Miss territory, and Ole Miss stopped them each and every time. You have to figure just the law of average means that they're going to make it work. So instead of 10 points, maybe they score 17 or 24. Now, the problem with Tulane is they're in the south of 100 a group of passing yards allowed, and that is not a place you want to be against this Ole Miss offense. And you have an All-American running back that you're going to have to pay attention to, and a quarterback that's a dual threat. It's not a great matchup for the Tulane Green Wave. So while I think Tulane's going to score and play much better than they did the first time, I'm having trouble figuring out how they're going to stop Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's where I come down as well. Their secondary, which is strange because last year their defense was great, and John Summerall's a defensive guy, and it just hasn't been there this year. And I don't know how that's suddenly getting right unless Ole Miss just makes a bunch of their own mistakes and drops and penalties. And, there are two different types of the same particular stat. There are turnovers, and then there are giveaways. If you fumble a handoff in the backfield and the defense jumps on it, that's a giveaway. A takeaway, on the other hand, is a guy goes up in a 50-50 ball and makes a one-handed catch diving over his head. Like that's a takeaway. Ole Miss has to avoid the giveaways because I don't know that this Green Wave defense is going to generate a lot of takeaways.
Yeah. And also another thing that if you're an Ole Miss fan or you're used to watching Ole Miss football over the last several years, I don't think you're going to see much powder blue as far as jerseys go in this playoff run. I think you're going to see more of the classics. Pete Golding is going to buy back in with those classic style uniforms.
Hey, I dig it. I'm an Oregon guy. I pay attention to what teams are wearing every single week. I said earlier this week on my show, the Army-Navy game, it was so good.
Those Navy helmets were fantastic.
Fantastic. And the Army uniforms, the crispy silver with black numbers. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Steven Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, great as always. I mentioned DJ Lagway, but there's another big name in the transfer portal at quarterback. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams, for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest as well. Getting tickets, usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch. Finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. I've used Game Time myself to go to sporting events and comedy shows, and I've had a great experience every time. I've saved money compared to other ticketing apps. I knew exactly what my seat was going to be. All-in pricing is the best because you don't get tacked on with late fees at the end. Game Time's just the way to go. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, Game Time. Off probably the best season of his long career so far, Brendan Sorsby's in the portal. So Cincinnati had a surprisingly good season. Many folks, myself included, thought, Cincinnati, they won't be that good. Probably miss a bowl game. And then Scott Satterfield goes, nope, Cincinnati floated in and out of the top 25 this season. Why? Because their offense was quite good and Brendan Sorsby was at the heart of it. Best year of his career. Now, he spent the last two at Cincinnati, spent the previous two at Indiana. He left Indiana right before Curt Cignetti got hired. I'm wondering if he thinks about that particular decision. And would a reunion make sense? Oh wait, yes, it would. It would absolutely make a lot of sense because Curt Cignetti's track record with transfer quarterbacks, Curtis Rourke, Fernando Mendoza, very, very good. Sorsby's experience, knows Indiana, and for the last 2 years has been incredibly productive. Now in 2024, he played well, 64%, over 2,800 yards, had 18 touchdowns and 7 picks. He went even better in this 2025 season. Now, didn't complete quite as many passes, but close, just under 62%, exactly 2,800 yards, but threw for 27 touchdowns against just 5 interceptions. He also ran for 580 yards and 9 touchdowns. He played some really, really good football this year. And Indiana is a school that comes to mind for me. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion this is not the last big name at quarterback that's going to leave the Big 12 and seek greener pastures. Sports Illustrated reported that he's getting an offer from somewhere or many somewheres in the neighborhood of $4 million. And for a quarterback of his pedigree, I think that's about what the going price is going to be. Now, he is a senior. He's played 5 years of college football, but only played one game in his freshman season at Indiana. So sorry, he's a redshirt junior and has 1 year of eligibility left. And it feels like every time one of these guys goes into the portal, I cannot help but think about Miami and whether that would be an option. Because Miami's got money, the interest, as I talked about earlier. That would make all the sense in the world to me. So I don't think there's a chance that Sorsby is staying in the Big 12. I think it's likely he's looking at an SEC or an ACC school. And remember not long ago, my everydayers will, of course, appreciate you all for being that, by the way, when I talked about the outside money, private equity, private capital, whatever it's called, investment that Utah made, and then the Big 12 had a deal where they wanted to infuse some money into their conference. This is the perfect example as to why. I think Brendan Sorsby is leaving Cincinnati because he knows he's going to be able to command a higher dollar figure elsewhere. Well, now you take a program that could have trended up towards competing for a conference championship, was doing that for a little while earlier this season in Cincinnati, and now you take away a guy that was at the center of their success this year and why they overperformed. So when you wonder, well, man, why would the conference do it? Do they really need? Yeah, this would be why, right here. Now, the one school within the Big 12 that could perhaps go after a guy like Sorsby that does have that sort of money is Texas Tech. BYU maybe could, but they've got Bear Bachmeier. I don't think they're going to make a change on that front, nor do I believe they should. So Sorsby, to me, is a top-tier option, and this is, again, getting the ball rolling. I think there will be more significant names at the quarterback position that wind up going into the transfer portal. But back in November, I highlighted on this show how crazy the transfer quarterback market could get, how much stronger it will be this season than last season. I think we've already seen that, and it's only mid-December. There's still a long ways to go. So Sorsby is, I think, when the dust settles, probably a top 5 quarterback that changes teams. Maybe he could slip out into the top 7, but I think with JKS making his commitment to Cal earlier this year, I think that Sorsby is one of the top 5 guys that probably winds up changing teams. And I could readily make the argument right now that I'd rather have Brendan Sorsby than DJ Lagway. Because I've seen Sorsby at the Power 4 level have some serious success and elevate a program that was making a transition into a new conference and hadn't done incredibly well on that front. And all of a sudden you looked up and, hey, Cincinnati's a pretty good football team. Why? Yeah, they were running the football. Oh, by the way, their quarterback can do that. So a lot of different systems, a lot of different teams I think could be a fit for Sorsby's services. I don't think he's pigeonholed into going back to Indiana or can only go to teams that, do this sort of offense like I talked about with Jackson Arnold a while back on the show. Georgia Tech is the perfect fit for Jackson Arnold. Why? Because it's going to cater directly to his strength, which is actually not throwing the football, it's running the football. I think Sorsby could go to Georgia Tech and fit. I think Sorsby could go to LSU and work out. Sorsby could go to Florida and have success. A guy that's going into his 5th year of college football that's been over 2,800 yards and at least 18 touchdowns the last couple of years and averaging 6 interceptions a season, can also run the ball, 580 on the ground this year, 447, 9 touchdowns on the ground each of the last 2 years. Yeah, this guy's going to command a pretty good amount of money. So I would definitely watch for Indiana in that regard, but I won't be surprised if Florida State tries to get involved, Miami. I think LSU could poke around on this front. I don't think he winds up going, certainly not down a level, but I don't think he goes within the Big 12. I think someone else is going to come in and offer him some serious money. Couple other names to know coming from the FCS ranks for transfer portal quarterbacks. Braden Atkinson is a guy that was at Mercer this past year, which I believe was the one-time coaching stop of Bob Chesney, future head coach at UCLA. I don't know if Nico Iamaleava is going back in the portal or if he's sticking around for the Bob Chesney era. Haven't heard anything on that front. Would it surprise anyone if he goes in the portal? Wouldn't shock me. I could also see him staying because I think Chesney's a really good coach and he's close to home there. But Braden Atkinson was the freshman of the year at the FCS ranks, or was a finalist for it at least. 6'1", 215 pounds, not a big runner. So don't think Mark Gronowski coming from South Dakota State here, but in 11 games this past year for Mercer, threw for over almost 3,600 yards, 3,596 if you want to be exact, 34 touchdowns, 11 picks. Dude went for over 325 yards per game on the season. Now, is that someone who's going to make a jump and go to an SEC school? I doubt it. But does he seem like a guy that's going to the Power 4 ranks? Yeah, probably. When guys make a jump from FCS football up to the FBS ranks, there are plenty of players who have had success. Cam Ward became the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. It's a big country. There are a lot of talented football players. As much money goes into the sport and recruiting, guys can get overlooked. Maybe he's one of those guys. Historically, it's hit and miss. It's hit, the Shedeur Sanders example, not the best one because he was playing for his dad, and if he'd just gone straight to playing college football without considering that he wanted to play for Deion Sanders, then he would have started at a Power 4 school. But that's another guy that was playing at a lower level, made the jump, and did very well. So that's one name to know. And then there's Jaden Craig. And again, neither of these guys are huge runners. And the interesting thing is that Atkinson just played his true freshman season at Mercer. Jaden Craig has been at Harvard for the last several. And each of the last couple of years has thrown for over 2,400 yards and has been very efficient as well. Last 2 seasons, 48 touchdowns against 10 interceptions and a passer rating over 150 both years. So I've heard Arizona State could be a potential spot for Jaden Craig. I don't think that'd be the only fit. I think any quarterback that's making the jump up to the Power 4 ranks should be looking for one thing in particular, because it is a different world and a different level of football, especially when you come from the FCS. It's one thing you make the G5 to Power 4 jump, but FCS to Power 4, that's like going from AA up to the majors. So Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Obviously, Sam Leavitt in the portal. We'll see where he winds up going. I've talked about him a lot in the past. But if I were a quarterback trying to figure out who do I want to play for, what sort of system would I look for to go to a higher level, I'd want something stable. I'd want something proven. I'd want a coach who's got a good track record with quarterbacks. Kenny Dillingham has that at Arizona State. So a couple of names to keep an eye on there, but you got DJ Lagway in the portal. You have got Sam Leavitt in the portal. You have got Brendan Sorsby in the transfer portal. Boy, I tell you. By the way, let me just close with this particular note. DJ Lagway to Texas Tech. Just keep a weather eye out on that front. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.